Okay, welcome back to Red Reaper Customs, and my name's Mark, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So what I'm actually going to go through, right now because of my work, I'm working night shifts, so it's kind of hard to get some more videos out. But what I'm going to try and do is this thing. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have a little chat about kind of some of the history behind why I wanted to build an old 70s chopper in the first place. I was born in '87, so this is kind of outside my time frame. So yeah, we'll get into a little bit of history about why I wanted to build it, kind of where the idea came from, and just have a little chat about it. And then after that, hopefully after work tonight, I can have a little bit of time and we can go over all the problems that are just out of frame here that I've talked about a little bit in the past, but we can go over that. But let's give this a shot.
All right. So, like I said, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be something a little bit different than what I'm used to. You'll see I've got this little guy over here. Oh, before I forget, the reason I'm dressed as ridiculous as I am dressed is today is Mardi Gras, and I live in central Louisiana. So, Mardi Gras is kind of a thing for us. So, let's get going. It's probably going to be a little loud. Sorry, Harley things. Get everything going. It's also a little warm to be wearing this whole setup. So, yeah, good times. Anyway, let's get to work. So, like I said, the main topic of this little chat is going to just be kind of a brief, I don't know what you'd even call it, an explanation as to why I decided to go with a weird motorcycle, like a 70s monstrosity. So the real reason for it is, I didn't really grow up riding. My family really didn't have motorcycles when I was a kid. It wasn't until much later that I even found out that my dad had one ever. So, when I first started out right after college, I decided that I wanted to get a bike. And I went down, I took the class, and because I had never been on anything that had a clutch in my life, I did not pass the class the first day, or the first time. So that didn't stop me though. I went down to the DMV and not exactly intentionally, but unintentionally tricked them into giving me a motorcycle license. Didn't end up getting a bike then. Fast forward, shoot, about 3 years ago. And I finally, during the pandemic, decided, you know what? I'm really curious if I still am interested in riding. So, I went, got online, and I looked around, and I was like, well, this is a good place to start. Found a little Sportster at my local Harley dealership. Went in, and they were like, hey, when was the last time you rode? I was like, well, it would have been 2009 was the last time I was on a bike. They were like, all right, cool. We'll take you over to the parking lot across the way, and we'll give you a quick little crash course. I'm sure you'll be fine. Fun fact, I was not fine. Nothing happened to the bike or me, but they basically said, all right, cool, we recommend you come back after you've taken the class. I'm like, all right, that's fair. But I'm stubborn. So I decided I didn't want to do that, and I went online and I found somebody else that was selling an old 2008 Nightster. And I was like, you know what? I want that. I was asking a reasonable price, went over, and I bought that. I was like, cool, this will be great. Got that home. I had that bike, as everybody told me, I only had that bike for, maybe a year, maybe not even a year, to be honest. And then I traded it out for, well, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't trade it. I kept it. But I upgraded and got myself a 2010 Ultra Limited. So I went from a little sporty all the way up to an Ultra Limited. And I love that bike. That was a great bike. It was in that like red and black two-tone that they had. Loved it. Fast forward some more, and I eventually ended up getting this bike. But back to the chopper topic. So my family, when I finally found out that my dad rode back in the day, I found out that the bike that he had was an old Honda CB. We aren't sure if it was like a 500 or a 750, but I got it in my head. I was like, you know what would be fun? Going and finding my dad's old bike, which we thought was in storage up in Illinois. We thought it was basically hanging out in a barn. And I was going to go and I was going to get that bike, and I was originally going to turn it into a cafe racer, because I was like, you know what, I've already got some big Harley Cruisers. I might as well go and get something a little bit different, something a little more sporty. Well, we ended up not doing that, because that bike is not there. We have no idea where it went, but it basically up and grew legs and vanished. So, that bike's not a thing. But I still couldn't get the idea out of my head. I still wanted an old CB. Mainly because, anybody who knows me, this shirt's a good example, I like weird stuff. I like weird, flamboyant stuff, in fact. And nothing says weird and flamboyant quite like an old 70s metric chopper. So that's why I picked it up. I went out and I just found it online. I did some backdoor trading and stuff like that. Managed to get that thing, got it home. And yeah, that's why I actually have that bike, is just because it was an old pet project that I really wanted and finally got around to getting it. Now that said, this I think counts as what most people would call like a dream bike, at least for me. Having an old school, like authentic 70s chopper is awesome sounding. That is like one of those few bikes that I want in my garage. It's like touring bike, chopper, little off-road thing to go around, and that's about it. So yeah, that's why I picked it. Now that said, it has turned into a much, much bigger learning experience for me than I anticipated.
Okay, so welcome back to the garage. It is currently 3 in the morning, and I just got off of work and got back to the house. So, as promised earlier, I'm going to briefly discuss all the problems that we've encountered so far. So I've made a little list. It's over off yonder behind the camera, but if I look off screen, that's what I'm looking at. So, let's just go down the list. We'll talk about each thing that I found, what was wrong with it, and what its replacement is going to look like. So, first things first, crankshaft. Alright, on the crankshaft, after looking at it, so in here, you can kind of see there, right up in the middle, that one's all screwed up, that one's all screwed up. Looking further, there are little nicks and gouges in some various places. So, I'm going to need a new crankshaft for this thing. Rather than list just the price of this, let me go into the next two pieces, which are these little guys, rods. So, new connecting rods, mainly because I believe it's this one. This little guy, you probably can't see it from here, but he is slightly bent. I grabbed it. Oh, that's a good fall. There we go. So, took me a straight edge and basically just threw it on here. And one of these, it doesn't fit quite right. In fact, it's this guy. It is slightly bent down here and up here, which means that this rod is actually shaped like this, basically. Excessively exaggerated, but yeah. So, unfortunately, that's part of why it's seized on to its respective piston and caused some issues there. So, rods. And of course the rod bearings that go in this little guy. So, between all three of those, the crankshaft, rods, and rod bearings, I found a deal on CycleX for all three as a package. So they're going to be a little bit beefier than these anyway. They're going to have the ARP connecting rod bolts, so I'll be able to reuse them if I ever man, need to rebuild this thing, I will have the ability to do so. But the price for all of that is, I'm going to put it on screen too, with probably like that little cash sound, but $1,074.95 from CycleX. So that's the first group of things. Next thing is crankshaft bearings, which I already kind of talked about with this, because they buzzed those out and they were all screwy in there. I think that the crankshaft bearings, the original ones, were okay, but since I'm in here, I'm just going to be safe, and since I'm going to be getting a new crank, I want to make sure that the crankshaft bearings are matched to the crank. So I'm going to be getting a new set of those. The new set for all 10 of the shells, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, $159. Add that one to the list. Next thing. These little guys. So, as previously stated, these all have some pretty decent impacts. This one specifically has a ton of little impacts all over the face. So over there, over there, over there, over there. And this one's also the one that has the pretty decent size. There's a little crack right there on that one. And the number 2 one has a full broken off piece, which means that the piston rings wouldn't seal even if I tried to use this thing again. So this guy's toast. I need new pistons. Pistons are where things get a little funny as far as the price goes. So the first thing I found was on a website called Dynaman Performance, and they are $749, $750-ish bucks for new pistons, rings, wrist pins, the whole 9 yards. But that's just for the pistons, and that's to match up with these as 67 millimeter pistons. So that's option 1, $749. Option 2, if I decide to go crazy, is I could go and get even bigger pistons than these that come with, I'm just pointing to it now, a new head, or I'm sorry, new cylinders. And that is about $1,400, but it would bring it almost up to a 1,000cc motor, up from the 890 that it is currently, between 890 and 900, depending on these little guys. So that's the options, $749 or about $1,500. Next is this little guy, camshaft. So I'm not sure how much I actually talked about it earlier, but there are 2 things that have me a little bit concerned regarding the camshaft. One is things like this, where it's just got a little bit of a weird wear pattern on it, but it seems fine. I don't think that one's an issue. What I do think is an issue, however, is right there. So that wear pattern is not okay, because it just basically sat at a slight angle. Actually, this way? Yes, this way. Sat at a slight angle inside the engine while it was spinning around. And this wasn't getting lubricated as well as it should have been. So what that did was it started chewing away at the end of this camshaft, and then as it chewed away over here, it dug into the camshaft holder, which I'll get to that in a second, but it basically started lowering it down like this, which means it screwed up this one, it screwed up this one, screwed up this one, and it screwed up this one. So they're all slightly marred, and then the holders themselves are even worse. New camshafts, $350, again, on CycleX. So that's that guy. I already mentioned it, but new camshaft holders. These little guys. So, right here, in this little valley right here, it is, I know you can hear that, grooved pretty badly to match up with how badly grooved the camshaft was. So, this guy sat like that. This guy sat like that. Those are too worn out, I think, to be used anymore, because the actual grooves in this one, and this one are all no good. You can even see better down in here, I think. There we go. Look at all that just gunk that I still haven't cleaned out. But that's basically just metal shards from when it was grinding away at that camshaft. So I need a new one of those. These are weird because these are very specific and you have to order them. I'd like to do it together so they come out of the same engine, so everything that's currently worn is kind of worn similarly. I don't know if that's necessary really, or if I just want to do it because I want to do it, but they were about $50 a piece when I was looking for them. And that's on the cheaper end. They can go as high as like $300 a piece, depending on if you're getting like basically not brand new ones, but remanufactured ones or used ones out of another bike. The ones that are used out of another bike, generally speaking, these shouldn't be that worn. Not like this one that was worn really, really bad because of race applications and being used for drag racing. In addition to that, though, so they're about $40 to $50 a piece normally. Plus shipping of $20 to $40 a piece, or I'm sorry, yeah, about $20 to $40 a piece for the shipping. So what you end up doing is you end up spending about $120, $130 just to get these. Well, that's a lot of money for just a couple little chunks of aluminum. And I dug around a little bit on eBay, and I was able to find the whole assembly. So these, plus the rocker arms, which are still down there, plus the rocker arm retainers that go in here, and an entirely new head for $192.12 total. As I previously mentioned in another video, our head does potentially have some issues. So down in here, I'm not going to zoom in on it because I've shown it before, there's a bunch of impacts on that head. And that's from that piston that I already showed you that was just kind of being a little wonky and impacting with the head. There. So, that one I've already ordered. So that new head and these new rocker arm assemblies and new cam holders, which is basically the same thing, are already on their way. So I already ordered that guy. And then the last thing on the list, I'm not going to go grab it, but back here on that part of the engine, the top half of the engine case, the head bolts or the studs, with the kind of pistons that I'm using and the new cam and the new rods, the smarter answer is to get some bigger, beefier studs. So that's going to be about $195 for the studs. Add that to the list. So all told, with all these parts, so these guys, all these, this guy, all this stuff that I've shown you here, all that basically equates to about $2,700 and some change. Unless I go with the even bigger bore kit than I've currently got, which would bring it up to around $3,400-ish, give or take. So, that's the damage so far. I don't have that kind of money just sitting around, so this is going to be a little bit longer project, like I've mentioned before, but I do plan on getting it done, and I'm going to try and do it as right as I can. The new camshaft, or I'm sorry, the new crankshaft that I plan on getting is lightened, polished. It's a pretty nice piece. Like I said, the new rods are very nice. The new pistons are very, very nice. All the stuff is new and fancy. The $300, $350 cam is probably going to be not quite as hot as this one was, but something that'll give it a little bit of oomph as well. So yeah, that's where we're at. That is the total cost. And it's a process. So please be patient with me. I do plan on getting this knocked out, but it'll require parts, and parts require time. So in the meantime, I'll have other things that I'll be working on. I've still got to polish the engine because I really want that to look nice, and since I've got it all ripped apart anyway, and I'll be waiting on parts or waiting on money for waiting on parts, might as well get to polishing. So, I think that about does it for this video. As always, like and subscribe if you like it and want to. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.